Hey there! In today's lesson we are going to be covering lesson Q9 and we will be discussing completing a function table from a graph. Alright, so the first thing we need to have available to us is a couple of definitions. So let's use the space here in the middle of your page to write those definitions. So X is going to be referred to as your input. It is also, if you remember from earlier this semester, your independent variable. Y, as a result, is your output. And it is your dependent variable. All right. So now that we know those two definitions, let's go back and begin to explore our first problem on this handout. So we are asked to use the graph of the function to complete this table. Okay. So we know, oh yeah, here is input and output. We know that input is the X value while the output is the Y value. And we remember, as also described to us on our graph, here's my X axis and my Y axis. Great. So we can see here that if the input or the X has a value of 2, then its output is 9. And we see that in the graph. That's very clear. If we have an input of 3, we draw up to our line on the graph, make a hard left over to the y-axis. We find the output is 7. Great. So now, of your own, you can look at this graph and say, oh, that means if I have an input or an X value of 6, and I go up to my line that is graphed on the coordinate plane, take a hard left over to the y-axis, its output value, its corresponding output value is 1. And that's it. That's all we got to do. Let's go down to problem number 2. So we won't necessarily look at all of the values on the table. We don't really need to. We remember the input is the X, the output is the Y. We have our X-axis and our Y-axis. We are asked to determine if the X or input value is 10. What is its corresponding output, Y value? Okay, so here is 10 on my X-axis. Go up to the line that has been graphed on the coordinate plane. Go over to the y-axis, and its corresponding output value is a 3. You can do this. This is great. Let's go to example 3. Okay, so here in example 3, let's see, we've got an input and an output. Again, input is the X, output is the Y. X-axis, Y-axis. We are this time looking for when the input or the X value is 2. What is its corresponding Y value? Its output. So here it is, my X value of 2. Go up to the curve that's here on the graph. Go over to the y-axis and we see it had a corresponding output of 8. Number 4. X-axis, y-axis, x-axis, y-axis. I'm hoping you've got those memorized by this point. We need an x value of 6. Found it. Its corresponding y value is 4. Are you ready to master this lesson? I sure hope so. One more problem. Number 5. So number 5, we were given x and f of x. So that's a little bit of a new piece of terminology. F of x is another way to show the y, or the output. That's fine. Let's write a couple quick definitions. F of x is your output. F of x is your y value. It is your dependent. And again, your f of x is a function with an x value of. This is how you speak it. This is how you think of it. It's not f times x. It is a function with an x value of something that we have to go find. Okay? So, for us, if x is 0, here is 0, go down to my curve, there it is. I bumped into my curve at a y value of -4. If x equals 3, here is 3. Again, I go down to my curve. And as the case is, it is also a value of -4. All right, I hope you guys have a great day and are very successful in this lesson.